Today we decided to break down our presentation in two blocks. In the first block, I'll be talking about the business requirements, how we came across that experimentation with machine learning, and how we built the foundation for its development. And then I will hand over to Will, which will explain all about the technical solution, how it all came about, and how he was able to pick up every single piece that we were able to pull together and develop a production-ready machine learning product. So I'll start with a brief overview about Vanguard. Vanguard began its operation in 1975 out of Malvern, Pennsylvania. And since 1975, it accounted for over $8 trillion of managed assets globally. Today, we have a crew of over 20,000 employees approximately, and over 30 million investors distributed out across the globe. Here in Australia, we started our journey in 1996 with our investment product. And just recently in 2020, we launched our online trading platform called Personal Investor, which allows anyone who's residing in Australia to log in to create their own account and take care of their own assets and their own investments as they wish. And as you can imagine, that created a lot of challenges for us during this whole online context. So basically, as you already know, there's been a spike in fraudulent and scam activity for online trading platforms, not only trading platforms, but for any online. The COVID times has been very challenging for all of us, and for all of us in the security space, it's been even more challenging, and it hasn't been different for us here in Australia. As I said, we launched our product in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and we were expecting to start seeing some fraudulent activity at least one year from reaching market, but COVID kind of made that gap even smaller by bringing fraudsters into the platform 5 months into the market. In Australia, our Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, which manages all the businesses environments in Australia, reported that we lost to fraud over 850 million Australian dollars, and that given the fact that many people don't report their losses, and we end up underreporting all the fraudulent activity. So the greatest challenge that those increased fraud activity and scam activity brought us is the fact that identity theft has been widely used to create fraudulent accounts and to leverage those stolen credentials to siphon money across platforms, through platforms, and from platforms. And with us, it hasn't been different. In 2020, when we started our operations here in Australia, we decided to build what we call the fraud analytics program, which we leverage advanced analytics, descriptive social media analysis, social network analysis, and advanced analytics leveraging machine learning to perform our detection and our monitoring capabilities. Some rule-based or fraud monitoring and our fraud detection to conduct our fraud monitoring and our fraud detection. And when I said, 5 months into the market, we started seeing our first fraud events. Our rules picked up those fraud events, but along with those fraud events, we picked up a lot of fraud, a lot of false positives as well. But we were able to identify some very specific patterns across those fraudulent events that allowed us to begin experimenting and trying out some algorithms that could assist us down the path. And I unpretentiously started testing some algorithms, and the most consistent one was the decision tree classifier that I came up with. And in that particular moment, we identified that all current traditional fraud detection systems, they tend to analyze transactions on the way out during the withdrawal. And based on all the patterns that we picked up, we were able to realize and identify that we were able to evaluate transactions on the way in. And that drastically reduced our risk profile for financial loss. And we also were able to understand through our social network analysis that fraud is a social phenomenon. And by saying that, this is our cue. Will, I will hand over to Will that will deep dive a little bit more in our technical capabilities and how he was able to pick up all those patterns and build a very robust machine learning model using a random forest classifier. So Will, over to you now. Thank you.
All right, Jose, thank you. And again, thank you for breaking down the business environment for us and also setting up these tough and difficult requirements from a technical perspective, right? And for all seriousness, I guess without you setting up the high bar, I don't think we'll be here today with the kind of results we have achieved. So again, thank you. And I think it's for every researchers, data scientists, hey, having some tough challenges is always welcome, right? So based on the current state where we were using mostly rule-based detections, and talking to Jose, he really asked us to reduce the false positives as well as reduce false negatives. Right, so we started our journey in a typical data science fashion, right? Kind of looking at the business problem and applied, I guess, gathered our online transaction data, applied some typical data transformation and feature engineering techniques, and then brought in a few machine learning algorithms to kind of compete head-to-head in a leaderboard type of scenario to see, all right, which one is performing, right? As Jose mentioned, as expected, the type of ensemble tree-based algorithms like random forest, XGBoost, they came out ahead compared to other machine learning algorithms easily. So that was our first and second iteration, but we were not satisfied, right? Again, based on the high requirements, high bar that Jose set for us. So we thought about it, how can we do better, right? So we went back, brainstormed with Jose, thought about from the attacker's perspective, right? What are their weaknesses? And coupling the concept of from cyber kill chain, right? We fashioned this fraud kill chain as shown here, right? Thinking about the constraints the financial fraudsters face, right? The first step, they have to gather their raw material, which are the stolen bank accounts, stolen credentials, PIs, things they either have to phish or hack, or, if they have money to invest, they go out to the dark web, purchase these stolen identities and PI information. Right? It costs time and money for them. So they have this constraint about their raw material. And then the second step in the fraud kill chain is where they magnify their raw material, right? They manufacture synthetic accounts. Maybe from 100 of these raw material accounts, they could manufacture millions of synthetic accounts just by slicing and dicing this information, right? Fudging maybe the last 2 digits, 3 digits of a social security number, or a TFN number, right, as in Australia, they can produce more synthetic accounts, right? Then they go off, exploit your system, maybe start with some sleeper accounts, and then finally it's time to take the money out to some Caribbean islands, right? So that's their dream, to achieve their objective. So our goal really is, as Jose mentioned, right, is to really lower the risk for us. So as painful as it is for a data scientist to throw away data in order to achieve the business objective, we thought, hey, it's best to not worry, not base our prediction on the withdrawal data. We'll look at all the other information, the money coming in, right? Stop it right there before the money even leave our doors. When we think about how to really improve upon the standard machine learning process, we have a couple special tools that we really like to share with the community here, right? The first one is graph theory. Right? As you think about the typical data that machine learning folks like to use, it's in a data frame, in a tabular format, right? It's kind of hard to divine the relationships between all the different data points. Graph, in a sense, really pops out these relationships for you. So as the two examples I've shown, the picture on the left shows the pre-2008 World Financial Network. And you can see that because Bear Stearns is still on there, right? Immediately, you could see the kind of interconnectedness of the world financial systems, all the financial institutions, right? You kind of get a sense of, hey, why did we say too big to fail? Why did we say, hey, there's large collateral damage? Well, you see all the connections on the chart here, right? And the picture on the right kind of brings it maybe a little closer to home, right? That's a representation of COVID-19 virus mutation graph in the spring of 2020, right? So now if we were to add in, let's say Delta, Omicron, you'll probably see kind of even more clusters than the two main clusters shown there in terms of the COVID-19 virus mutation types. Right, so these type of graph representation really pops out the relationship for you that you can't really see easily from a typical tabular data format. Now, if we were to bring this home a little bit, so how does this apply to the financial fraud data, right? So when I plotted some of our accounts relationship on paper in a graph, right, especially between a customer's bank account and the customer account in Vanguard, right? You could see, let's focus on the picture on the left. The gray colored pictures represent benign, normal customer accounts, and the burgundy colored represent known fraud accounts, right? Immediately you can see, yeah, the complexity of these type of relationships are different. Right, again, going back to what we talked earlier, our understanding of the fraud kill chain, right? Fraudsters are limited by their raw material. In order to scale up their operation, they have to resort to reuse of some of their information, right? That typically leads to more complex, deeper relationships, right? In graph parlor, you talked about the diameter of that cluster is bigger, right? There are more edges, more vertices in that particular cluster, right? So you can easily convert them to graph-based language and measurements. Okay. So what's further, this allowed us to develop the guilt by association logic, right? It sounds a little harsh. If an account, a customer's account or bank somehow is associated with a fraud network, right? Even if they're innocent, we still want to alert our customers, hey, somehow you're connected with a fraudster system, fraud network. Like you may look out for potential account takeover or hijacking events, right? So either way, we want to alert our customers something bad is about to happen. So the picture on the right shows an experiment where we added a connection from a test account to a known fraudulent bank account, right? Immediately, you could see that fraud network extends all the way through all of the vertices and edges within the test accounts. Essentially, no matter how deep, if this were a real event, right, no matter how deep the fraudsters is trying to hide, once they make a mistake, they reuse one piece of material, we'll be able to immediately pop them out and refer them to our fraud investigators for further investigation. So there's really nowhere to hide once we bring in the guilt by association logic. Now, with the power of the graph, right, from this visual intuition, we can easily convert it to mathematical terms using centrality measures, right, degree centrality, closeness centrality, I showed here betweenness centrality, and other measures such as the diameter of the particular cluster. We add about a dozen or so additional features back into the original tabular data set. And then rerun our machine learning algorithm on this new expanded data set. So before I show you the money chart, there's one more technical ingredient that enabled our capabilities. So the other challenge we faced was highly imbalanced data. As typically seen, when I worked on cybersecurity data or financial fraud data, right, most of the data points you get are just from normal people. They're trying to go about their everyday lives. Occasionally, you may get a few bad apples trying to either attack you or take advantage of you. Yep. So most of your data points that you get, you're feeding into your machine learning algorithm, right? They're highly imbalanced. In my case, it's about 1,000 to 1 normal data compared to the true fraud data. So that will cause some problem to the typical machine learning algorithm, where they expect about roughly equal, let's say, class distribution, right? So in order to confront that particular problem, we introduced repeated nested cross-validation method and upsampling, right, to help our machine learning algorithm learn. I guess if the picture doesn't make sense to you right now and you're interested to learn more, feel free to connect to me offline. I'll be happy to discuss more. All right, so coupling with these two particular techniques, here's the, money chart from technology perspective. If we focused on the F1 score, right, it's a particular measure that balances out false positives and false negatives. We could see, compared to the baseline, when we add in graph and upsampling, we were able to improve our overall performance by 6%. So that's pretty significant from a data science perspective. If we translate that to business terms, right, what does this mean to our overall business? The Vanguard Australian Business Unit, right? Since we put in this machine learning detection methodology with graph, right? So we have stopped $5 million of additional fraud compared to the baseline rule-based methodology. Right? In one egregious case where we actually detected the fraudster trying to take out $3 million of fraud. Right? Again, that's compared to our existing rule-based detection methodology. So on top of that, we also reduced our false positives from the rule-based system by more than 80%, right? Really improving the time efficiency from our fraud investigators. So they didn't have to spend so much time kind of just trying to find that needle from the haystack, right? We really send them mostly the needles over to them. Since we put that in, we also working with Jose, trying to optimize and automate the entire process, right? From ingestion to prediction pipeline, and trying to optimize the integration with our custom alerting software. So really trying to make the operation easy and more streamlined. Now, before we open up to questions, just want to share a little bit of our fraud transformation vision, right? So we have already taken our fraud from anti-fraud in action to anti-fraud as code by using machine learning and analytics capabilities. Our vision is really to go into anti-fraud by design, right? Really taking all these lessons learned and bake them into our existing business and technical processes, and trying to rely on machine learning and think about incorporating machine learning into the existing processes, right? Using techniques such as step-up challenge and risk-based type of approach. So with that, I'll hand it back to Joshua and Shane to see if we have any questions from the audience. Thank you.
Will and Jose, thank you very much for your excellent talk. Yeah, we got great activity on the question front, so we'll jump right into them. First one came to us from Discord asking, do you leverage open source intelligence like public releases of account names and compromised passwords in developing indicators of fraudulent accounts?
All right, I can take that one, if you would. Now, we don't leverage any open source intelligence to build up our model. We do leverage open source intelligence during the investigation process. But to build up the model, we use behavior analytics. We use some behavior logics that we know that we understand our platform. We understand our platform affordances and how they can be exploited. So we build some behaviors on top of that. And we build that on top of the features that we use for the prediction model. Hope that answers your question.
Great. And like I said, that one was on Discord. So you guys, if there's something missing, we can head back there later. The next one, another one from Discord. What sort of tools do you use to work with time series graphs? Presumably, guilt by association changes over time, and you'd like to model the change, not just the new state.
Yes, I can take that one. So we did put in some time series measurements, basically looking at the freshness of the accounts, the age of different activities, right? So that's one of our traditional machine learning methodologies we put in. And so I would say mostly, we think about age of the process. If things got too old, then they'll be slowly aged out of the system here.
So Will, let's stay with you for this one too, because this was a follow-up to that second question. Someone commented, I was wondering the same thing. Is this a VAE clustering or something similar or something more analytic?
Yeah, in terms of the tools, I guess that's where the audience is asking. We used, for now, we experiment with iGraph and Network X. And in the future, we're trying to experiment with some of the commercial graph-based databases. One example I can think of right now is AWS's Neptune. That could be one of the candidates for us to experiment on.
Okay, question 4 from Jim asked, are the features per connected component? What is the unit that you are classifying?
Okay, great question here again. Yeah, in terms of the features that we added back into our machine learning data frame, right, from the graph, basically we took the graph centrality measurements, such as degree centrality, closeness centrality, betweenness centrality. And from my experience, betweenness centrality really kind of gives you a lot more information about how deep and how extended the particular fraudulent networks are, along with some of the cluster measurements. So feed them back into the traditional machine learning data frames.
Okay, next from Edward, he asked, inferring the reputation of bank accounts seems to be very similar to traditional IP host reputation. I am curious if you have if you've seen fraudsters leveraging Tumblr or mixing services to evade getting tainted with a bad reputation.
Excellent. I can take that part of that one, Will, if you don't mind. Excellent analogy. And yes, we've seen them trying to evade, getting tainted with bad reputation. Yes, we've noticed also we have a blacklist of what we consider being high risk banks. They're not necessarily bad in terms of being bad as bad banking financial institutions, but they are more prevalent on the fraud space in terms of fraudulent activity and being used to transfer money across. So we have that blacklist, and we build our blacklist on top of those banks that we identify being bad as well. But we've seen that now they don't discriminate anymore. Any bank can be a bad bank nowadays. So we're kind of shifting away from that bad reputation, blacklisting kind of approach, because we've noticed that they're diversifying their bank portfolio. So we've been mindful of those changes as well.
Yep, if I can add from a technical perspective, right, I kind of showed this bipartite graph as a representation in the presentation. So really in production, we incorporated a multipartite graph that really you can include as many type of vertices as you want, right? Including IP addresses or ISP, let's say more of the customer information besides the just customer account information, right? More bank information as you want. So the actual graph gets richer because you have multiple types of relationship being modeled within the graph. And going back to the question, yep, it kind of inherently tells you something about the reputation of a particular vertex, right? Types of vertex, whether it's IP address or the bank account or other types of vertex you're representing in the graph.
Okay, next we got one from JP asking, what frequency do you run this? Are you using this as a tipping alert or as an investigative tool?
Great question as well. I can take that one. We're running that every single day. We use the model persistence principle. So every time that we generate a new model, we create a log of the previous one. We save the new one, we evaluate the new one, we save the new one, and we run that in production, and we run that every single day. Right now, what we are doing, since we've seen a relative decrease in fraud activity in that specific fraud typology that we're using that model for, we are redesigning our training cycles to retrain the model based on the number of true positives that we detect.
Okay, we got another one from Jim asking, your nested cross validation has loops. What is the stopping condition?
All right, great question. For now, so we set it to be just the preset number of iterations, right? So I guess the goal is really to have the most efficient use of the limited true positive data points we have, right? So we only have double-digit number of true positives since we started this particular research, right? So carving out, let's say 20% of them are never used for machine learning really would handicap us. So this nested loop type of training and validation process helped us to be more efficient and spread the information out as much as possible. So right now, in a short answer here is really predefined number of loops.
Okay, JP asked one, and this is in regards to custom alerting software. What is it based on and who monitors it?
All right. So here in Australia, we created an in-house alert management system. So not only the model, but the rule-based approach, the rule-based models that we have, they create alerts. And that alerts are populated in a queue. Then the analyst goes into that queue and start, analyzing those alerts using some of the tools that we designed in-house, as well as the social network analysis tool or the IP consistency verification tool. And for the machine learning, for example, the alerts, they come with a score that the model produced when identifying those patterns and evaluating those patterns on a specific account or a specific transaction. Then the analyst can shift those alerts and prioritize those alerts based on the score that the machine gave to that specific alert. And based on the indicators that we provide to the analyst as well on the screen, he can start digging into one specific lead that he can see from the alerts that were generated. It's a little bit hard to explain without a visual representation of the alert system, but think about a queue where the alerts are populated in every row, and the analyst goes through every single alert. He can take up to 5 seconds to 1 hour to investigate a specific alert. And what we did, we centralized all the analysis in that single point of truth, so the analysts don't have to go into different platforms or different vendor platforms to analyze that specific alert. Everything that he needs is displayed on screen in that single view, in that single alerting system for him. That's what we mean by alerting system.
Okay, well, Jose, there's lots of more questions on the Discord server.
Right.
One that we don't have time probably to get to since we're under a minute, but it was upvoted by a number of attendees. So make sure you guys get on Discord to interact with some of these attendees, these great questions. So we'll just wrap with this one, just a softball for you two. Is this your first time at FlowCon? Or if it is your first time, how did you hear of it?
All right, Jose, you want to go first?
All right, I can go first. Yes, it is. That's my first time at FlowCon. I've heard about FlowCon before, but never had a chance to participate. And when we were developing and working on this project, Will already had some experience in the FlowCon before, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jose, I think this is a really good product to present at the FlowCon. Would you be interested in presenting with me?" I said, "Well, absolutely. Let's spread the word out there and let's see what we get back." And it's been an amazing feedback. All the questions. It's really a testament that it's a very interesting subject. So I'm very very excited, very happy, and very humbled to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd say this is my third FlowCon, and it would have been the fourth, except I guess 2020 or 2021 we didn't have it. So I really enjoyed 2019 FlowCon, where I learned a lot from the community, and 2020 FlowCon was my last in-person event. I really treasure that one. So not only did I learn a lot from the 2020 FlowCon, I also, presented about the cybersecurity work we did using machine learning, and really enjoy the interaction. And this time, again, we're humbled and really privileged to be able to share the learning we did. I know fraud is a big problem in the overall community, right? Especially that's caused by the pandemic. A lot of folks are going kind of into the cyber world and trying to conduct online fraud. So we thought that it's timely to share some of the experiences that we had. So thank
Well,
you
absolutely.
again.
It was a timely presentation and greatly appreciated, especially with the time zone difference. So we're going to move on to our next talk, but thank you both again.